Welcome to Business Coaching Secrets with Karl Bryan. If you want to attract new high-end coaching clients, fill live events, and build a wildly profitable coaching practice where business owners pay, stay, and refer, you've come to the right place. In this podcast, Karl provides his keys to the kingdom for finding and signing high-paying clients and building the coaching business of your dreams. Here we go.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Business Coaching Secrets. It's your bro, the road dog here, with his bro, the king himself, Dr. Karl Bryan. Sir, how are you feeling today?
Yo. I'm doing good today. I'm doing better than usual because I am in Cancun, Mexico. As you know, coming from Business Coaching Mastery 6. Anybody's not here, they are missing out. Make sure you're here next year. But that's what we're doing. So I'm looking a little bit more gold than the normally shoots. I'm impressed. My tan.
Well, you are the golden boy. So listen, it all makes sense to me. This works. All right.
Yes.
Did you this is it, Mexico. I'm jealous, you know what, but it's sunny, it's 10 degrees, so eat your heart out. Because I'm sure it's probably way too warm, and I probably work up a sweat just by sitting outside, and that's no bueno for me. So there you go. All right, bud, you want to hop right in here, or anything you want to get off your chest? Maybe this should be a new segment, Get something just like, get Karl getting something off his chest just to start every episode. Is that a thing, or do you want to hop right into the questions?
I get no hair on my chest shoots because I'm in Cancun. I'm looking extra sexy, but no, I'm good. Nothing to get off my chest, man. I'm ready for the first clue. Whatever you got, you come at me with questions, and we're gonna hit it there, shoots.
And I just got that image of Steve Cantrell from, what was it, 40-Year-Old Virgin.
Yeah, exactly. I heard a similar one, actually.
Going in for a while.
By the way, I was getting made fun of last night at the bar from a couple of clients because of the hair on my chest. So there you go, shoots. There you go. But anyway, let's keep moving. We're freaking everyone out.
Yeah, this is a true story. That, you know what? It's a good point. Okay, listen. First question. You talk about first principles quite a bit. Okay, so you may need to do a quick recap for those people that may not be familiar with first principles, because the question that we got was, when working with your clients, would you agree that first principles is the most important mental model? So just maybe can you do a quick recap on what first principles are for those people that may not be familiar? And then do you think that is probably the most important mental model to use when working with coaching clients?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I'm going to do a quick recap. First of all, a recap on mental models. And by the way, guys, sound quality, I'm in Cancun, and this might not be the highest sound quality podcast of all time, but hopefully you bear with us, and hopefully we'll drop a couple bombs that'll make it all worth it. So look, mental models, what do they do? It's going to help you just think, stop and think. How many times have you maybe a metaphor, you send that email that you wish dearly that you could peel back and not send it. If you were using a mental model, you stopped and think, and then you decided to send it tomorrow instead of today, would that have been a better idea? And the answer is probably. Mental models work a little bit like that. Think of your day-to-day activities. Like, one of the things I like to describe, the ways I like to describe a mental model, is that it will allow somebody to have two conflicting thoughts at the same time. Example, let's say politics. Politics are clearly, politics are politics, and they're always going to be. Well, could I vote Republican federally, and then could I vote Democratic for my local representatives? Most people, they just think they're a Republican, so they're a Republican, and then they got to go with a Republican, and they're not able to kind of, separate one from the other to say, you know what, I really like this guy. I like what he stands for. He's a Democrat. I'm, traditionally a Republican, but I can get my head around this. Or maybe another example, getting vaccinated right now, hot topic. You could be pro-vax, but then anti-vax passport as an example. But I will tell you, and that is rare because you just figure, look, I'm anti-vax. You got to be anti-passport, right? Anyway, so a conflicting viewpoint on something along those lines. Hopefully that gives you a good example. And it just, again, the only way you're going to get there is stop and think. Just thinking at a higher level. So first principles, I don't know that there's a most important mental model. There's certainly some that will rise above. I would dare say if you were to press me on the most important, I don't know if we've talked about this, like the map, if you don't want to go in the wrong direction enthusiastically. You don't want to confuse being busy with being successful. I've got a saying, if you go to my personal website, I think it's right up there at the front, but it's, you motivate an idiot, they do stupid things quicker. If you get your ladder up against the wrong house, it doesn't matter how succinctly or efficiently you get up that ladder, you're on the wrong damn house, right? So that being said, the map would potentially go above first principles. But first principles is like, you got to break something down. And there's people so much smarter than I on this topic. So again, if this is something that you like, delve a little bit deeper. But, okay, metaphor, you've got a chef and then you've got a cook. Okay. A cook is going to go off of the recipes, and then a chef creates the recipe, right? So what Elon Musk has kind of made this, he's kind of made this famous where he says reasoning from first principles and not analogy, or at least I've heard him say that. And what he means by that is, so if you start cooking and you go off of a recipe, you're going to be significantly less creative than you are if you start with core ingredients and say, if you want to make a really healthy meal, you start with healthy ingredients instead of a recipe that's calling for sugar or salt or whatever, right? So you break it down, so a chef. So again, you want to cook. Are you starting with a recipe, or are you starting with fundamental ingredients? First principles would be those fundamental ingredients. We'll go to sport. Let's say football. The first principles of football are the rules, right? So you've kind of got guys that are, placed, like in football, the entire sport is made up of running plays. Well, there's play stealers, and then there's coaches, right? So the coaches make the plays, and then the play stealers take the other guy's play and then tweak it a little bit, if that makes sense, right? So Bill Belichick would be an example of, what I think to be, the best of the best. Although he's lost Brady and things aren't looking quite as amazing without Brady. Who knows what that will do to his legacy? But at the end of the day, Bill Belichick is a stud when it comes to, football. And he has created plays. I remember he ran this crazy, this crazy play one time. And it was just, he understood the rules of football. He knew that he would be able to pull this off, right? And it made every highlight reel for, the entire season, where people are like, what the hell? Like, how did that happen? So anyways, the rules are basically the first principles of football, right? If you don't understand the rules, you're not going to be able to create a really cool play from the ground up. Look, better said, I want you to think improvement over possibilities. Okay, so if you're running off the recipe, you can improve it, but if you're creating the recipe, you're working from possibilities, right? So Elon Musk, he's the first principle, messiah, or just, the legend is what I'm trying to say. He's not going to industries and improving them. He's literally creating his own industries, right? Like, I'm going to send people to space, but I'm not going to send astronauts to space. I'm going to and Mars, and he's going to colonize Mars. Like, again, this is first principles thinking. Again, he's the alien just trying to get home, like often said. But anyway, so first principles, very important. That's what first principles are. So look, if you are an athlete, first principles would be balance. I don't care what sport you play. If you're not balanced, you got to take your ass and you got to get it closer to the ground. That's how you become balanced. I don't care if you're 6'9" or 5'6". You got the same thing that you're working off of, right? So, and again, to a baseball player, He falls into a slump. The guy's making $20 million a year. He falls into a slump halfway through the season, and his batting coach calls him in. And what does his batting coach say? He doesn't say, you know what? Look, you've been left-handed for way too long. You know what we got to do? We're going to make you right-handed. That's what we got to do, right? And then obviously that's, you know what I mean? That's not how, or, I'm playing hockey and I'm a goal scorer and I fall into a slump and the guy says, you know what? You should become a goalie. Like I think maybe, making $20 million a year, this is working out okay, but you haven't scored a goal in a long time. We got to put you in the pads and put you in net. Obviously that is ridiculous, but first principles are that if you fall into a batting slump and you're making $20 million a year, the same way that I would help an 8-year-old is the same way that I would help you. You got to keep your eye on the ball. You got to keep your elbow up. Got to get your butt down. You got to be more balanced. You got to run. Don't hit the ball and then loaf. You got to hit the ball and bloody run to first because you never know when a bad throw in air is going to come. So anyway, so that's first principles without question. So first principles of a business coach is, are you any bloody good at it? Again, I drive a fast car. That doesn't make me a mechanic. If you want to be a great business coach, you got to be a great business coach. You got to start there, right? It's like people talk about all the time, don't coach anybody for free. Well, Tom Brady threw a football for free for a while before he started getting paid, right? Like, how good are you at this? If you're really, really amazing, you could coach somebody for no charge for 3 weeks and then start charging them on week 4. You could absolutely do that. Right? Like Tony Robbins, he's coached, it's a story of Tony Robbins with Mark Benioff. He was coaching him. That's the CEO of Salesforce. And Tony Robbins coached him for nothing for a piece of the company. And Tony Robbins' share in that company, Tony Robbins is a billionaire off the shares that he has of Salesforce. So think about that, right? So when you're thinking about, first principles of coaching is being unreal. When you're going to coach your client, first principles are they any good at this? And if they're not any good at this, look, you really got to help them sharpen the saw. It's like the actor going to acting classes when really what they need is acting school, right? And I would just say, Road Dog, in closing, like I always think sporting, where at the end of the day we're business coaches, the coaching, we come from sort of a sporting background and that this is where coaches came from. You really got to think, I don't know first principles, but we've said this in the not too distant past, you've got to get really good at distance, right? Like when I'm playing on the field and my buddies are in the second row, there's only feet between, a very short distance between us, but the distance is catastrophic, right? You've got to be comfortable with that. Otherwise, you're self-sabotage and you end up in the stands too, right? So as an athlete, as you make more money, again, you move into, better communities, you drive better cars. There becomes distance between you and the other folks, and you have to be okay with that. And it's a very easy thing it's not so much you're not okay with it, but you don't realize it's happening on a subconscious level and you self-sabotage, right? So you got to be careful with that. It's kind of maybe the first principle of sport, first principle of psychology. Like the better you think you're going, the more concerned you should be, right? If you look at, a Tom Brady, a Serena Williams, a Michael Jordan, a Steve Jobs, a Tony Robbins, the better you think you're doing, the more concerned you should be. You introduce me to somebody who's uber successful, and I will introduce you to somebody who's got a pretty high level of paranoia. And of course, there's always anomalies, but we don't deal with anomalies. We deal with percentages. Like a great athlete will always be disappointed in their own performance, right? Like successes are used as motivation towards a higher level the next time. And then they also peak on the biggest stages. Like if you notice, you ever seen a tennis player like Novak Djokovic as an example? He wins 6-4, 6-4, 6-4. He's not looking for a consistent effort. What he's looking to do is crush it at the right times, right? So their goal is not consistent level of performance. Their goal is to peak when they need to peak. And notice, like last year, Tom Brady lost to the Saints twice. Drew Brees played him in the playoffs, and what happened? Smoked him, right? So again, not, peaking on the biggest stages is huge. And regardless of the score, they never feel like they're ahead. Like you're kind of always competing because you're scared to lose. It's a little bit of a, as a true entrepreneur and somebody that's really looking to crush it, I think that that could be a little bit of guidance. You got to be comfortable with guidance. You got to, the better you're doing, the more concerned you are, a level of paranoia, disappointed in your own performance. And I realize somebody's listening to that going, oh my gosh, that sounds like horrific existence. Well, I don't know, if you want to buy the Rolls Royce and the mansion and live a life of, Steve, one of the greats of the greats, unfortunately, it's not all, wonderful, thrilling, pillows, pillows up in the air, pillows, you know what I mean? It's not all like amazing, right? It's just not the way it is. You don't get there. You get there from paranoia, right? Again, peaking on the biggest stages and then regardless of score, competing like you're scared to lose. I think that's important. But bottom line, mental models, we talked about it a lot in the last whatever number of episodes, and it's something that I would encourage everybody to explore. First principles, they are correct. It's absolutely towards the top. I would dare say if you pressed me, and again, there's people smarter than me on the topic, but the map would go first because if you're going in the wrong direction enthusiastically, this is not a good idea. But yeah, so that's what I'm going to say, Shoots. I'm going to say, what do you think?
Okay, like it. I'm just looking at the questions here, and I was actually going to start Googling First Principles books. Is there a book that you were reading or anything in regards to that specifically, or no?
No, Charlie, the OG, if I want to go, I mean, again, you just Google it, and there's so much out there. But Charlie Munger is the OG, so, and that's Warren Buffett's business partner, so I'm looking for information on First Principles, Charlie Munger, and he's not going to sit there and go, okay, the map is this, First Principles is that. What he does, he just gives you real life examples. Like an example that comes to mind that I saw on Facebook recently, it's like this fighter jet, right, comes back, and then they're looking at it and they can see all the bullet holes, right? They can see all the bullet holes, and the guy comes back and they go, look, all the bullet holes here, we have to reinforce the plane where they're getting hit. And the other guy said, no, these are the ones that came back. What we got to do is we need to reinforce the plane in the other areas, because when they were getting shot in the other areas, these are the guys who didn't come back, right? So that would be an example of inversion. And, Charlie Munger talks about inversion a lot. There's a templated example, which I've given in the past. He wants to know where he's going to die, so he's never going to go there, right? Like the idea is that you're going to stay away from it. So yeah, but so not specifically a book. I'm sure there's some great books out there on the topic. I'm sure that I've come across or even read one at one stage or another. But Charlie Munger has got all sorts of really good information that I have really enjoyed on the topic. So I would just search it, Shoots, if you're looking for more information. Somebody's looking for more.
Okay, so another question. We again, something else we've talked. I want to say the last 2 episodes, but you're talking about buying, selling businesses. So somebody asked the question here, saying, "Hey, recently I've been following what you said about selling, buying businesses. If a business sells for $1 million, can you explain the process of getting it? So how do you get to it? Like, I guess, what's the math, or what's what are the first principles behind getting to the number of $1 million, Karl? That would be the question, right? How do you get there?
Yeah, first principles, Shoots. I like it. Okay, so I can tell you, it's funny. We talked, like you said, we got quite a few questions in and around this over the last little bit. You're talking about buying and selling companies, and it comes to exit strategy. Importantly, and again, I may have said this last week or the week before, but some things, again, just need to be repeated because I think they're that important. But like exit strategy is like it's a conversation that it shouldn't be about exit strategy. You want to build a business that you're going to own forever, but can sell it tomorrow, right? Like that's an intelligent roadmap. That's an intelligent position to put yourself into, right? So rather than thinking exit strategy when you're working with your clients, I want you to think about, framing up a business that's absolutely bulletproof. But I tell you, like you go, look, pricing, terms, and training are the 2 primary things that you're doing here. Most people would think that price is the Mac Daddy, but in actual fact, like a buddy of mine, he bought a a pool company. In fact, I'm business coaching mastery. I'm going to be presenting on this. But in a nutshell, he bought it was a company doing about 7 million, netting $1 million thereabouts. But bottom line is he came in and he had some experience. He has no experience as a pool guy, but he's a pretty smart guy, and he hired, he had a couple people around him that were going to guide him, who he put in the right position. But he came in on an all cash offer. And so when you go buy the pool company, and you write the check for X, right, for, $3 to $5 million, well, the owner has to stick around for X amount of time, to babysit, to train, and to do whatever. So he came in on an all cash deal. So there's normally a lot of seller financing involved, like 50% seller financing, right? And he came in on an all cash deal, and basically got it for 30% less than they were looking for, which was, decent discount, money straight into his bank account that he's saving. And then, can't remember quite what it was. It was like the guy was going to be out of there in 90 days. Like, you come in 90 days. I believe he actually had a non-compete, and then he actually paid him for the non-compete, which was, so look, you've got price, you've got terms, and then you've got training. Okay. So the training was only going to be 90 days and the owner was going to be out. So other people had come to him, but he's going to have to be sticking around for 12 months minimum, to continue to manage the place, help them, et cetera. The guy just wanted to get out of Dodge. Right. So it's not so much just about price, but it's on, some of the different ways that you can, be flexible or help them be flexible with their terms. And then, of course, training's a big one, because when you decide to exit your business, you decide to sell, you just want to get the hell out of there. But the guy has made himself available for a period of time. So if there's any headaches, he's going to easily be called upon, but there's absolutely no day-to-day responsibility. But just simplicity, price, terms, training, that's all you really need to be thinking about. But you get that we did cover this last week, but all you do, you take earnings, and it basically comes at a multiple, right? And then what you got to do is, so the multiple will depend upon size and the industry. And again, I'm fearful that we covered this last week, so I don't want to repeat too much, but you can go back and listen to that. But you just take earnings, okay, and then you multiply them by a multiple, and then the multiple will depend on, what industry and the size of the company, et cetera. But what's critically important is that you need to take the numbers, okay, let's just say, again, they netted at like $1 million, but what were the key activities that got them to $1 million? That's what you want to know. Like, what were the key drivers? How much of a role did the owner play? What sort of activities got there? The due diligence on the final, just because they say, the financials, they netted out $1 million. Again, a business broker has no fiduciary responsibility. So basically, they get provided financials. They don't have to do any due diligence. They don't need to audit these things. They just accept them to be true, right? Which an investment banker has fiduciary responsibility, has like a license to protect. You might want to think about going to, using an investment banker. But an investment banker will be cheaper, but they normally only do bigger deals, and they will take a retainer. Whereas a broker will take a higher fee, closer to 10%, but they won't necessarily. They sometimes will take a retainer, but often don't. So who is it that you're dealing with as you're operating, buying this business? And then you reverse engineered those numbers to have a look at, basically, what's what. And operating, very importantly, you're going to want to know what operating cash is. Like, let's say, as an example, they own a company and they've got, significant number of tractors. Well, if they sold 1, 2, 3 tractors last year, and let's assume that, it's $200,000 in total for the tractors, much more than that, could be much less. It depends upon the level, but that $200,000 is not sustainable, right? Like that, once they're gone, they're gone. So that is not operating cash. That's investment cash, not operating cash. And you need to be able to work out the difference. And then, do you think that your seller is going to provide that to you? And the answer is absolutely not. So what you need to do is you need to get profit and loss statements from the seller. They'll normally give you one. You need to get multiple periods In the perfect world, you do a projection for next year, right? So estimates as to what the current run rate, where we're going to end up next year. So you got a bit of a picture as to what you're walking into. You need to have multiple periods, and then you need to have balance sheets. And again, often you ask them for a balance sheet. They'll say they won't have it. You say, humor me, let me see them. They give you the balance sheets, and then you can reverse engineer. If you've got the balance sheets and the profit loss for multiple periods, you'll be able to reverse engineer the numbers and create a cash flow statement. So you've heard me talk about this, 3 statements, lots of different, calculations and like things that you will get from an accountant, but the 3 most important: balance sheets, profit and loss, and a cash flow statement. Well, on the cash flow statement, you'll be able to see exactly how much income of the X, $1 million, $5 million, $7 million came from the operations of the business, and then how much came from the likes of selling vehicles, selling tractors, like I said a minute ago. And you would absolutely want to know that before you bought the business. So just how do you get to the valuation? The one way is to get to the valuation, but a significantly more important topic is how you reverse engineer the financials to work out the activities to decide if they're sustainable, predictable, and there's some opportunities to grow, right? Like not only operating cash flow, but free cash flow. Okay. So free cash flow, Warren Buffett, okay, you assume he's a pretty smart guy and he's only worth a few $100 billion. He is a madman about free cash flow. Why? Basically, free cash flow is how you distribute money to the owners and pay off debt. And I think that there would be a debate to say that if you're going to own a company, what are the 2 things you want to do? Well, you want to be able to pull you don't want to just pay suppliers and pay your staff. You want to pay yourself too, right? So you get paid through free cash flow, and then paying off debt. Do you want the debt sitting on the books and owe it forever and continue to pay interest, or do you want to just get this off the books? And the answer is obvious. Well, how do you pay those things off? Free cash flow. Okay. So an example of, free cash flow. Look, we may have gone over this last week, but again, there's some topics that you just can't go over enough. And I would dare say this is one of them. Oh, and by the way, Warren Buffett is a freak about free cash flow. Another guy you might have heard of, Jeff Bezos, a freak about free cash flow. So as an example, if you have, and I do think I gave this example, but you got a lawn mowing company, and then you have a lawn mower. If you made $100,000 of profit last year, and then it cost you $20,000 every year to buy a new lawnmower, you'd have $80,000 of free cash flow. Okay, so you see the way operating cash and then investment cash. Investment cash is where you buy the tractor from, plus or minus, right? So basically, you made $100,000 of profit, but it's going to cost you next year $20,000 in a lawnmower to replace it. So your free cash flow would be $80,000 because $20,000 was the expense of that. Bottom line, free cash flow. Again, not a difficult thing to research and get a bit of a feel for. You're going to want to understand. Like if I'm going to buy a business, I want to understand what is the free cash flow, and getting that from a business broker is just probably not going to happen. And even if you did, you'd want to be able to reverse engineer it and work out what that looks like. So anyway, so that's kind of it in a nutshell. And just something else, like concentration risk, you got to be very careful with that. If you're looking to, create a valuation for a business, you've got to make sure that they don't have, all their eggs in one basket. If they've got one client, one staff member, one anything, think single points of failure, you need to think very carefully about whether or not this is a business that you're going to want to take over, right? And the average business will sell for $500,000. And there's 4 things that go into a valuation. There is sustainability, predictability, growth, and growth opportunities, and risk, right? So sustainable, like the company that I said a minute ago, they sold 2 tractors last year. Are they going to be able to sell another tractor the year after the year after? Clearly, that's not sustainable. Okay, that's an example of how we go, this is going to get a smaller multiple of earnings because it's not sustainable, right? Is it predictable? If you've got a business that's made $1 million profit for they've been in business for 10 years, they made $1 million of profit 4 years in a row, haven't grown, but haven't declined, pretty much stayed stagnant there. Could you be comfortable that it's going to stay there? And the answer is probably. I would also look at the industry to see that, hey, hang on a minute, is the industry stable? Why have they not been growing? And is this an industry thing where these guys are working real hard and doing a great job, but the industry's in decline or stagnant, right? So that's so predictable, sustainable growth. Again, the new buyer, like the business broker, the investment banker is going to give you a whole list of here are all the unbelievable opportunities that you can take advantage of the day after you buy it. Well, okay, that's great, but here's my question. Why haven't they taken advantage of these growth opportunities if they're so amazing, right? And then, of course, they'll say that they were tired and they're just no longer passionate about their business, this kind of thing. But, the sellers assume that they're liars, right? So you need to reverse engineer, all of the activities and really, have a good hard look as to whether that, what I mean, what those growth opportunities look like. So valuation, also probably roll up and earn out is two things that on a macro level, what a business coach should understand. You don't need to, financial statements, you don't need to be able to create them. You need to be able to read them, right? So it's important that you don't feel like you got to, you don't need to become the accountant. It's not necessary. Being able to read them is significantly more important than being able to create them, quite frankly. So a roll up and an earn out from the macro level. A roll up is where, Doug, can you remind me, did we talk about this last week just before I go and repeat this? Roll up and earn out. Do you remember?
No, we didn't. Not that I remember anyways.
No? Okay. So a roll up, if you guys have heard, so a guy with a roll up will go and instead of buying, let's say like a Medi Spa, very popular right now doing this, right? So instead of buying one Medi Spa, they buy 100 of them. And that'll provide, if not, hundreds. So that provides them economy of scale. And they'll come in and basically, they're owning hundreds of them. I think it's pretty straightforward. So it's a roll up. And they'll come in and depending upon your business and the size, again, they're going to come in, give you, what may or may not be an attractive offer. But these guys are going to own hundreds, right? And then an earnout, which often will happen in conjunction with a roll-up. But an earnout, have you ever heard of a financial planner or an insurance guy selling his business for $1 million? That's probably not what happened at all. It's an earnout. Well, it kind of did. It's an earnout where they come in and they go, okay, your EBITDA is this, right? Your earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization. Basically, your think profits, right? Simplicity. So they come in and they say, okay, so your profits are X. Provided you maintain these profits, we're going to offer you $1 million paid out over this period of time. We're going to take over. You're going to continue to run the business for X amount of time, 1, 3, 5 years, normally longer, or a longer period than a shorter period. And then what's going to happen is provided you maintain EBITDA, as in the business stays as profitable as it was prior, you're going to continue to get the payments. We're going to pay you off over 5 years. You're going to continue to get those payments. But if the business stagnates, right, if it goes backwards, you're going to get less. But by the way, if it's more, if EBITDA improves, and you guys crush it, then you're going to get a handsome bonus. You're going to be incentivized to do well. But so that's what happens over a long period of time. So it's not like they come in, pay you $1 million, you go home and, buy a boat. It's nothing like that. Like you've got to just earn out. An earn out is if then. So if this happens, then this will happen. If this doesn't happen, then that won't happen. I think. So just think if then in place of earn out. So basically, there you go. So how do you get to that business? You look forward, it is always earnings multiplied by a multiple. That's the way you get a valuation. Road Dog did a valuation. I did a valuation. The smartest investment banker on the planet did a valuation. This is the way they do it. They go earnings multiplied by earnings by a multiple. And then the multiple is dependent upon many factors, but if you just to break it down into 4 words, predictability, sustainability, growth, opportunities. And depending upon how sustainable, how predictable, how exciting the growth opportunities, and most importantly, from somebody who knows what they're doing, risk will be very important, if not the most important. The risk involved, because asymmetrical risk reward is what an investor is always thinking. An entrepreneur wants to grow it, the investor wants to keep it. Massive adjustment in psychology. So really those 4 words. So if you had, and a business most businesses will sell, like the average business sells for $500,000. And if you're listening to this and you're thinking my multiple sound all small and you watch Shark Tank or you're in the stock market, a multiple valuation on a private company and a public company are 2 completely different things, right? So this, what we're talking about here, we're not talking about Silicon Valley and, Mark Zuckerberg. We're talking about, again, and we fear of repeating myself because we did touch on this in the last couple of weeks, but a landscaper, a roofer, this is the butcher, baker, candlestick maker, right? And real estate, by the way, if you've been comparing it to real estate, it's so amazing. Well, real estate, it's not unheard of for you to get a 20 to 40 times multiple in a real estate deal. Why? Because again, presumably super sustainable, predictable. Over the long haul, the growth opportunities are great and the risk is very low. Well, then your friend's COVID hit, and how are the guys invested in commercial real estate doing right now? Can't even, it's horrific. So that has adjusted, but just so, it's not apples to apples thinking real estate and business, but it's absolutely, it comes from the same place. And this is where, sometimes folks hear these valuations, you will get on an average business that sells for $500,000, you'll get a multiple of about 3 will be, if you're getting a multiple of 3, you're doing pretty good. And there's some people listening, they're like, wow, that doesn't sound like a huge multiple. That's absolutely, often you'll get lower than that. But 3 is the average and $500,000 is the average business that sells, just a little FYI. So Road Dog, the valuation, those 4 words. And what's important, if anybody's listening to this and they want to have a takeaway, it's that you've got the financials. You got to get the right financials. You got to get multiple time periods, balance sheets, income statements, and then either create your own cash flow statements or get them from them. You're looking for operating cash. You want to know how much the business is making straight up operations and not from selling trucks and cars and real estate, et cetera, which, by the way, might sound obvious, but I got to tell you that this is where the mistakes. You hear about the horror story. This is what went wrong. So what's important here, the takeaway is that you got to be able to take those financials, reverse engineer them into activities. And then you can work out whether this is a good business to take on. And you get there by asking intelligent questions. So what do you think, Road Dog? Does that help?
Well, yeah, there's two things there. First off, clearly the most undervalued and underrated business of all businesses clearly is the candlestick maker. Because you keep bringing it up. The candlestick making business, folks, your valuations on that are going to be to the moon and back. So that's definitely one to look at. Listen, Shoots, you talk a lot about like the numbers, right? And all of the different balance sheets and everything else, and just looking at the numbers. Can you, in reverse engineering them into the activities, but can you just get into that just a little bit? Like, give us some examples of some of the activities that specifically that you're looking for, and also like what questions to establish, like those activities when looking at a business opportunity.
Yeah, easy and good question, by the way. Well, so what you said, I'm going to try that. My hesitation, I'm like, how can I do this with a coaching company, right? Like, let's think, so you own a coaching company and you did $1 million gross last year, right? And then somebody's going to come and somebody's going to look at buying it from you. Well, I want to look at, let's assume that you've got an online course, okay? You charge $100 and you got X amount of action from that. Okay, well, the problem with a coaching company, the reason that it's not sellable is that when you leave, Road Dog, basically the clients go with you, because I'm not going to show up for the Tuesday call and have this guy, that's not necessarily going to work, right? Because it's like, I kind of miss Road Dog. There's a good chance that will be a short-term, if anything, a short-term relationship and potentially a non-starter. So the online activity is going to excite me at a significantly higher level, right? And then let's assume that you've also got, so you got X amount from your consulting. You've also got a mastermind, which you do quarterly, where you bring guys in, and on a quarterly basis, you take them to Vegas or wherever you take them, you're doing this mastermind, and that earns X, right? So let's just say it's 200 from the masterminds, 200 grand. It's 200 grand from the online course. So what's that for? And then there's $600,000 in one-to-one consulting. So this would give me a good understanding that, so my questions are that, could I take over the mastermind and make predictable and sustainable? Could I keep that growing? You know what I mean? Could I keep it going? And I fancy myself to be a pretty good masterminder. Let's assume that I've been in the group. Often when you sell a business, you go to your number one client and your number one staff member, right? These are places to start. Doesn't always work, and that can be complicated, but these are places to start. So we'll assume that I've been in that mastermind. Everybody likes me. I like everybody else. I get on with them. That I feel like not only could I take it over, but as a growth opportunity, I feel like, you know what? I could turn that 200 into 400 real quick, because I'm going to do twice as many of them. Or I'm going to take everybody on a yacht, and I'm going to take everybody on on a private plane and do some masterminding on that once a year as well. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, I'm going to, I feel like I can turn 2 into 4. So like, you know what? The 200 grand that you're earning from the mastermind, I feel like that's duplicatable. The online course, I'm a client of yours. I've been looking at the online course for X amount of time. It's not like it's the Road Dog show, right? It's PowerPoint slides and do. I'm looking at that and I'm like, okay, well, activities like Road Dog, how are you driving traffic? How are you making that 200 grand? Talk to me about the clients that are coming into it. Talk to me about the retention. How long have these guys been around? Again, are they going to continue? What's the upsell? How many people come into the online course and then buy into your one-to-one coaching and then buy into the mastermind? I'd like to understand as best I can those numbers. And then how do I find them? I would like something on pen and paper, but I sit down with Road Dog and I have these questions ready and I ask him these questions, and understanding that when I sit down with Road Dog, I'm not trying to work out how great of a guy he is. I'm trying to work out the activities that he's undertook to get to these numbers. And then I would like them to see them backed up with proof in a perfect world, right? Like, show me your ad budgets. Let's see how much you spent on advertising. Let me see it. Let me see your account. Let's look at your conversion. So that would be an example. And then the one-to-one coaching, which is 600 grand. And then I think that I would have a hard time getting my head around the 600 grand, but I feel like I could grow the online course and make it better. I feel like I could grow the mastermind and make it better because I participate in those and I'm right there. The one-to-one coaching, I could see 600 grand, maybe going to zero, but realistically, I could see the 600 grand getting cut in half pretty quick. Because when I start showing up to the coaching calls, that might be a challenge. So I'm going to, I'm going to accept the 300 of that 600 to be tried and true. And then because the valuation that you're going to come to me with, I'm going to come to you with a different valuation. How did I get there? Sustainability, predictability, growth, and risk, right there. And by the way, when you're valuing company, in that instance, I wouldn't, like, let's say Road Dog, he puts $1 million. Let's assume 300 grand was, pure, would be dependent upon activities. So let's just simple math. 333,000 was profit. Okay, so then I would realistically be offering him a multiple of 3 if we go by averages, which I don't think I would offer him that, but let's just go with 3. We get to $1 million valuation, right? But or Road Dog gets to $1 million valuation. That's what he's asking me for. The starting point is not $1 million for me because that's what Road Dog's asking. My starting point is 0. And then I'm moving my way up to $1 million if I ever get there. In this instance, I wouldn't. You kind of get it. So when I'm valuing a company, Road Dog says, "Do you want to buy my company?" I say, "How much?" He says, $1 million. When I start my due diligence, my process of looking for activities and whatnot, I'm not starting at $1 million and seeing if I want to shave some off. I'm starting at 0 and climbing up like a ladder. That's a really important distinction, right? So Road Dog, that's it. And I'm going to reverse engineer like how much, the traffic that you drove. And then I want to have a look at the ads. But so that's what I would do. I'm looking for the activities that led to the $1 million of gross sales. And then I'm thinking about those 4 words: predictability, sustainability, growth, and risk. And that's how I'm going to climb my ladder to get to the valuation. And I say, Road Dog, here's your valuation. So Road Dog could have a valuation of $1 million. And let's assume that I'm able to get my head around paying only, $350 for the grand that he's asking $1 million. But then somebody else will come in and they'll get to 600 right in the middle. And the question is, how do three people look at the exact same business and get three completely different valuations? Because real estate, if a house is worth $1 million, it's worth $1 million, it's worth $1 million, right? Like you're not gonna come that far off. And the answer is in those four words. And then you got to get better, and you're only going to get better at it by practicing it. And I think on a macro level, it makes sense for a business coach to not telling you to become a business broker, an investment banker tomorrow. What I am telling, or what I encourage you to do, is to understand what I'm talking about. Start thinking about these things. Help people build businesses that you want to own forever, but can sell tomorrow. I think that's a really powerful process. So that's my answer, Shoots. What do you think?
Okay, so we're kind of pressing against time here, but you mentioned advertising, and I want to ask you this because it's sort of it's an interesting question, right? So in your expertise, can you explain advertising a new opportunity versus an improvement, right? Because we see this all the time.
Yeah.
I see it obviously every day in what I do, but can you sort of, I'd be curious too what you think of this, because I know I have my thoughts, but new opportunities in advertising that. What are your thoughts?
I know this. We talked about, look here, yes. Okay. I wouldn't think advertising. I want you to think talking to a business owner. That might be more powerful for a business coach that's listening. When you're talking to somebody, when you talk about improvement, like, oh, Road Dog, you grossed $1 million next year. I think if we do this, this, and this, I'm going to be able to improve that to 1.25 pretty comfortably. That's improvement. When you want to sell somebody, you want to sell new opportunities, right? So I go to Road Dog and I say, oh, you don't have a mastermind? I'm going to help you create a mastermind. Oh, you don't have, you're advertising on Facebook and Instagram. We're crushing it on LinkedIn. A new opportunity is that I'm going to help you do the same. Like, the way you're crushing it on Facebook, we're going to be able to crush it on LinkedIn because I've got a hack for there. Oh, you're not an author? I'm going to turn you into an author. You don't have a special report? I'm going to create a special report. You don't have a business plan? I'm going to write you a business plan. You don't have a marketing plan? I'm going to write you a marketing plan. You don't have a Facebook ad? I'm going to create you a Facebook ad. So I want you to think about, rather than speaking to people about improvement and how going to the next level, I want you to think about what are they not doing? And this is to sell them. By the way, is this the best roadmap? Do I think that when you take on the coaching client, you should, go and create all this new crap? And the answer is no. So then there's this. Yeah. So, but when you're trying to get Road Dog to whip out his credit card and say, work with him with 1,000,000% certainty, and more to the point on something like, a Facebook ad, coming at him with a new opportunity is going to be significantly more exciting, than improvement. And think maybe a segue here. Think product, program, event. Again, the mistake they make with their coaching company and your clients make is they're advertising the name of their company. Nobody gives a crap. You got to think product, program, event. So as a business coach, the name of your company, and you're probably not as guilty as this as a business coach than the local business owner is, but really great metaphors. Think of the NFL. And did we talk about this recently? Hopefully not. But the NFL, do not advertise the NFL. They advertise games. They advertise their athletes, Tom Brady, etc. And then they advertise the playoffs, event, and then, of course, the Super Bowl. So they advertise, product. Think of product as the player, program as the games, the events as the playoffs and the Super Bowl. So you as a business coach, what program? Like, I have live event mastery. I've got profit acceleration software. I've got digital acceleration software. We've got, I'm in business coaching mastery in Cancun now. I mean, you have to be a client in order to get here to do this, right? But that, when you get it, like, internally, we are, like, you wouldn't even know the name of my company, most likely, right? Completely irrelevant. It's the product, the programs, and the events I want you to be thinking about. So that also falls in line with the mistake people make when they're doing promotions. But with 100% certainty, if you're ripping around and you're talking about improvement, driving traffic online, you're not going to get very far. But it's also when you're sitting with your prospect and you're trying to get them juiced. So Road Dog, in closing, curiosity, right? Like, business coaching mastery if you're a business coach and you hear that, there's a decent chance that you go, what's that about? I don't know that that's the greatest name ever, but it probably evokes curiosity in my right guy. A way better example of that curiosity is, I can find any business owner $100,000 in 45 minutes without them spending an extra dollar on marketing or advertising. If you say that with some mojo, somebody lifts their eyebrows, it's curiosity. People will be significantly more curious about the new opportunity than they will improvement, right? So that's where that comes from, and we talked about that some time ago. So anyway, so that's my answer. Shoots, what do you think?
Okay, so awesome, love it. It makes complete sense. Obviously we're kind of pushing the regular time here a little bit today. So I just can you close us out? I'm not going to do the one thing today. I really just want to kind of be a little bit more broad, and I know it's dangerous with you. But what are some of the other sort of words of wisdom? What are some of the other bits of wisdom? What are you working on these days? Just close us out with that. Some of your Karl Bryan magic sauce.
Dang, road dog. We could be here a while, Shoots. You know what? We're with the software, group coaching software. We're announcing in Cancun not just announcing, but showing everybody what we're working on. Some unbelievable improvements in and around the group coaching software and some of the customizable features that'll, I think, make those in the audience's eyes water. This is certainly the plan. And we have a live stream, by the way. So my clients, we have plenty of people on the live stream. They should all be there. So working on that. The reason group coaching network effects is the reason why group coaching software is such an important project for us. We get a lot of coaches working with us. They're making multiple 6 figures, they're making 7 figures. But see, the thing is, when you're making 80 grand, 6 figures sounds amazing. And you get to 6 figures, then it's like 250 sounds amazing. And then you get to 250 and 500 sounds amazing. Like nobody's ever happy, right? Like Road Dog, how do you close up the podcast every time? Progress equals happiness. The coach that hits 7 figures and is at 7 figures is not satisfied at 7 figures in any way, shape, or form. Why? Progress equals happiness. So group coaching software allows network effects where you can have 10 people, 25, 50, 100. You could have 1,000 people if you wanted in your group coaching program, and our software facilitates the entire thing. So that, we've got pop quizzes and we've got, pre-session notes. We've got obviously the group coach, the educational component of the group coaching program. And then there's the Q&A that's that's all automatic, and, it's all tied into, CRM. And then you can see, if Road Dog goes in and watches 20% of the video, you can see that. If I go in and I watch 56% of the video, you could go in and see that in our individual account, so that when somebody's super engaged, you can reach out and try sell them more. If somebody's totally unengaged, you can reach out and get them engaged, right? So all that kind of magic. But anyway, so there you go. There you go. That's probably, there's so much more that we're working on in business coaching mastery. I'm opening it up with multiple hours presentation that I'm pretty excited about. I'm hoping to drop a few bombs on our, we shall see. I have to ask them, but I think what I'm going to provide, or the direction I'm going to provide, is going to be pretty cool. So that's what we're working on, bud. But group coaching software is definitely it's a biggie, bud. It's a biggie.
Beauty. Well, listen, everybody, thanks for tuning in to another amazing episode of Business Coaching Secrets with my main man, the man on top of the hill, the king himself, King Dr. Karl Bryan. If you're not on the inside and you're not getting access to the pre-show, or you aren't getting access to Karl's daily emails, you just want more information on how to build your coaching company, or you're looking for more information on this amazing group coaching software, visit focused.com and subscribe today. And again, if you enjoyed the podcast, please share with a fellow coach or someone you think might make a great coach. Of course, as always, we appreciate if you'd rate this episode, as we know that all the streaming services give an insane amount of weight towards reviews. So if you like what you heard, please leave a review for us. That is positive, of course. And I can't believe it. That is it for another week. And as Karl just said, progress equals happiness. Take care, everybody. Have an awesome week.
Karl Bryan built Profit Acceleration Software 2.0 to train business coaches how to find any small business owner more than $100,000 in 45 minutes without them spending an extra dollar on marketing or advertising. This becomes a business coach's superpower. So as a business coach, you'll never again have to worry about working with business owners that can't afford your high-end coaching fees. Check us out at Focused.com.